Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Hi, everyone. So glad that you can join us on another 1950s Fun Chat. This is number 157. We just keep moving on and interviewing. Oh, I should not say interviewing, chatting with all these wonderful guests who have stories from the 1950s. And Jackie, who do we have today?
Well, I'll tell you that in just a little bit. First of all, I want to have our viewers make note of that purple banner. It says www.whilethewindmillwatch.com. So please go there to find out more about the 1950s Fun Chat. In fact, Janine mentioned we've had 150. This is 157. So all those previous chats, you can click into it if you have a mind to. Also, it tells about where we are, where the books are, our vendors. We just completed a very successful book signing tour. So that is on there, and just a lot about the book. Also, up in the upper right-hand corner, there you see the book, While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s. And you can learn how that book launched our fun chats. So let's get going. We're going to introduce you now to Gartner's Capital Shoe Hospital, which opened its doors in 1922 by Jacob Gartner, father of Ernest Gartner, grandfather of Mark Gartner, and great-grandfather of Jacob Gartner. Mark and Jacob are with us today. The Gartner Hospital has provided quality service and repair for 102 years in Bismarck, North Dakota. Gartner's has called 3 locations home in Bismarck. Through the years, Bismarck has seen most of those mainstay businesses slowly disappear, with a few surviving the test of time. Now, the Gartner family business is grateful to be one of the very few remaining. So, Mark and Jake, welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. We're glad you're here.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So, because this is the Fun Chat, we're going to start with talking about the 50s. So, why do you think business thrived during the decade of the 1950s? Both yours and other stores and businesses in Bismarck?
You know, back in the 50s, it actually was a matter of need. Mm-hmm. And so shoes weren't quite as easily available. It had just come off of the previous decade with the war. A lot of things were rationed even at that point, but things started opening up. A lot of leather had to be used with the shoes back then because they had no other options. There was no rubber or plastic available. And so the soles and heels wore out very fast. So that kept the business going quite easily, with all the people. We saw a lot of people very often through a year. And so they would get their items repaired. And of course, it's kind of like recycling. You can recycle your shoes and actually make them last longer, save some money. And if they're favorites, why not?
Mm-hmm. Do you find that, and even still today, that shoes have only so long of time in order to really be effective for your feet? Or is it just that you're grateful to have a pair of shoes and that's what you wear?
Well, I think back in those days, you were grateful just to have a pair of shoes. We didn't have the comfort and the shoes and inserts and the things that we can do for the feet then that we do now. And so now it's a whole different game. You can help out if you've got your feet are hurting, or if your toes give you a bad time, or you've got plantar fasciitis. We've got items that help those things. I think now it's a matter of people want to buy something that's going to feel good on their feet. And to get that, there's a lot of different options. You've got fabrics, you've got leathers, you've got all sorts of different types of shoes, and inserts as well. Lots and lots of those.
And I know the pair of shoes that I recently purchased from you are wonderful. They feel great on my feet, and I'm so glad that you suggested them to me, Jake, when we had our little technical practice before. And so, having been in Bismarck recently, it was a great decision to buy those.
Appreciate it.
And
Thank
so
you.
You're welcome. So back in the 50s, when that would have been when your great grandfather or your grandfather was involved in the shoe repair business.
My grandfather started this store in 22, and he actually passed away in 53. My father took over in 53. He was 26, and he took it from there. And so they actually, it kind of changed hands in 53. That's when Bismarck was bustling. We had a lot of things changing. All the inline stores that you got accustomed to seeing downtown all changed to, we had a J.C. Penney move in 1953.
We had Ward's.
Ward's
Ward's
came
was
in.
a big one.
Yep.
I mean,
and so there was a lot of changes in that area. And so we ended up downstairs under a pharmacy.
in the Cowan Drug Building.
Yep.
How well I remember going down there as a little girl. We go with Mom. Dad needed his shoes probably resold because those work boots were a very important part of getting him through each day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So do you suppose societal changes had an influence on the types of footwear that you offered to your clients?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think everything from just changes in life and technology has changed that. Even as much as COVID in 2020, that changed people a lot also. Their routines changed. They weren't running. They weren't doing the things that they did with the kids running around all over the place. And so we got footwear that was
functional. I mean, unfortunately, that old school dress product, has kind of slid a little bit. I mean, we still get a lot of Western boots and things like that because we're obviously in the Midwest, but not quite as many dress shoes. Most of it's athleisure, athletic shoes, something easy to put on, something that somebody can wear around the house, but run out to the grocery store midday because they're still working at home rather than at an office.
Yes. So, Jake, you're a youngster in this business. Why get involved with it?
I think took me a while, but I found some interest in my mid-20s, and after I found the interest, I think it just flourished from there. I mean, when you find something that you enjoy, I mean, Grandpa always said it, if you find something you like and love to do, you won't work a day in your life.
Exactly. Yes, very much so. And also, Jake, when you transitioned into the business, and now what responsibilities how do you divide your responsibilities with your dad?
I mean, Dad started me off slow. I mean, I think when I was 17, 18, he kind of took me out, started showing me the ropes of how to sell shoes and kind of do the retail portion of it. And I started out as a shoe shiner. So, I mean, that's always kind of your starting point. But as the years have gone on, I kind of have moved into inventory management, things like that. And then we've lost a couple of repairs over the years. So I've transitioned more into the repair side with Dad because me, him, and one of our other employees are about the only ones left to do it. So, I mean, it takes some days all of us to keep every cog moving around here.
So are there still shoe shiners?
Oh,
it's been at least 15 years since anybody even wanted to become a shoe shiner. The newest generation doesn't find any worth in that, unfortunately. And so we still do that ourselves. So when you come in here for a shine, you get one of the two best.
Yeah.
One of the two best. Okay. What's the trick to a great shoe shine?
A lot of it would come down to what product you're going to use on what kind of leather. I mean, is it leather? I mean, depending on the finish that you have on the leather is going to dictate a lot of things.
Mhm.
Also, depending on if it's patent leather or if it's going to be a bull hide or if it's a calf skin, so on and so forth. But overall, you just assess the shoe and you take it from there.
When I shine,
I didn't even realize patent leather could be polished.
it can. When I
you use Vaseline with it.
back in my day when we shined shoes, it was the glossier the better, and clean. Wanted them clean. Today, a lot of people like the
antique finish.
Or the distressed look. So they don't want them to look too nice, just nice enough.
It's got to look new but old.
Okay.
So when in the shoe shining back in the 50s, did you have an outside shoe stand so people walking along the streets of downtown Bismarck could stop and get a shine right there?
We didn't. We actually had a marble stand inside the shop that we had 6 chairs on, and they were all busy. I mean, that's every businessman downtown would come in for a shoe shine. It was right in the front window, so you could see them. But it was kind of like getting a haircut. People used to do that almost once a week or every other week. Had to look good all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, and I remember Dad telling me a couple stories about, when the Capitol would be in session. And he said, oh, you always liked those guys coming down because he said they'd always tip you $1. And he said that dollar went a long way. He said when you were making 50 cents an hour.
Yes, for sure. Well, what did you do with that $1 tip?
Oh, buy ice cream?
No, I saved them actually.
Well, good.
Okay. So this advancement of technology, it's happened so fast. How has that aided your business? Computers and etc.
Well, I mean, for instance, in 2013, we added our first point of sale system for the retail and for the repair. I mean, prior to that, it was all just handwritten tickets. And I tell you, when someone loses a handwritten ticket, you have no other way of finding the product. So, I mean, I feel like we were always on a wild goose chase. Once we added the system, it definitely organized everything quite a bit better than it used to be.
It sure did.
I mean, when so many people are so busy that I get it. I don't remember my tickets and I don't remember my receipts all the time. But when you go in, now we can sit down and we can find your log in the system. We can find what we've done, how many times we've done it, so on and so forth. And I mean, even with the growing price concerns, that has helped us tremendously there as well. Because a lot of times on a year-to-year basis, you're not always, you try to keep on top of it as well as you can, but you're not always watching the price increases. One time you order and it's this price, the next time you order and it's $3 more, and you're, oh, okay, we got to watch that.
Yes. So do you foresee AI being used in your business, artificial intelligence?
I can't see it. There's just too many variables on fixing anything. And in fact, if you ask my son and I how we would fix an item, it might be different from each other. So even we have different
I have read a couple articles on, Nike had a couple of limited release machines that they put in a couple of large city stores where you could go in and you could actually pick out certain types of product you wanted your shoe to be built out of, and you would get a set time to come back and your shoe would be done.
Oh.
And so they do have a couple of autonomous product. I wouldn't necessarily call it AI, but it would be a machine designed to take the input of what the individual wants and build it within a few hours, come back and pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have these wonderful machines that sew through leather and other materials. Do you ever do any kind of repairing? Like, do you repair CHAPS, for instance?
Oh, yes.
Leather.
CHAPS. We would do saddles if we needed to.
Vests. We do a lot of vests.
Leather vests. Purses, satchels, suitcases.
bags of any kind.
jackets. Yeah, anything that we can sew, we'll sew.
Anything we can get our hands on, we'll try to fix.
Is there anything you haven't been able to not fix?
Not much.
No, not much.
Ah.
Occasionally, there's the stuff that's maybe either too big or too delicate that we can't get after because our machines aren't quite equipped to do it.
Okay.
Do you ever see many ladies designer shoes come in for repair?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Jimmy Choos? Jimmy Choo shoes?
a couple Jimmy Choos. You know, Air Maze is a big one that I've had my fair share of experiences with. But outside of that, yeah, we've had definitely some high-end product come through the door.
Okay. And in the background, Mark and Jake, is your repair area. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then up on top, I see pairs of shoes. And how do you know? Does that go back to your point of sale tickets or information? How you know whose shoes are up there and what shelf they're on, for instance, so that when
behind us is actually all the replacement soles we use on shoes when we need to repair a new sole.
Oh, okay.
But to answer your question, we give the individuals a ticket or a sales order that has written on what we're doing. That's then pinned onto the shoe or boot or luggage or jacket. So it follows that. So then when we're done, we do have a specific shelf with a number on them.
And are you able to show us the front of your shop where the retail occurs, shoes and
what about the photos that we saw earlier? I mean, you showed us previously in an email.
Yeah, can you
do this first?
Run through? Yeah, give us a quick verbal tour also, please.
Okay. So, I mean, you know, this is kind of our retail display area. We do anything from, you know, we jumped into clothing here a little bit in the men's workwear in the last couple years, and we do some nice winter gloves. We do a lot of winter and hunting boots, and this is really where our main focus is our insoles. You know, we do a lot of orthopedic modifications for individuals who need specific things done. And we have found that the sock industry is really big.
You've got inventory.
Yes.
Men's and women's socks.
Yes, women's, men's.
Children's.
And do you find the unique designs are very popular?
So for the women, what I find is probably the most popular. We get into the animal product, seahorses, the foxes, the little chicks, the dogs, but that has been a huge hit for us.
And I met at Christmas time, be great stocking stuffers.
Oh, absolutely.
Are those mostly fashion socks, or are there some orthotic socks that you carry too?
Most of them would be probably, I would say, a functional or fashion sense. We used to have a company we dealt with that had a nice medicated sock through Accelero, but they no longer make that product, and so we have had to move on from that.
So tell them, what does it mean to be medicated, a medicated sock?
If you would get a compression sock, if you had diabetes or, you know, something like that. Yep. Those are a little tougher. It kind of goes into the medical end when you do that. And we didn't have as much of that as we thought we should have, but you know.
And that doesn't require prescription, does it? To purchase those.
Yes. We wear those when we fly overseas. We wear those.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to move back here.
You bet. Okay. Yes, Jackie mentioned those wonderful news clippings you had about downtown Bismarck in the 50s or ahead of that. Are there some of those that you can show us and talk about downtown Bismarck?
Oh, sure. I'll let you talk a little bit about downtown Bismarck, and I'll grab the photos.
Okay.
So Mark, you were probably so engrossed in repairing shoes, shoe shining in the 50s. Was there anything outside of work that you did in the 50s that brought you great joy?
No, pretty much worked all the time.
Yeah.
But it was joyful, evidently.
It was. I didn't mind doing it.
Yeah.
For me, it was a long day. You started early. You worked as long as you had to get everything done.
Mhm.
Back then, the glues weren't as good. Everything took longer to do.
Mm.
You know, back then we would probably have 5 hours tied up into soles and heels on a pair of shoes.
Oh my.
And now we can probably work them through in 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a much different system. We still do them the same way, but we have products that are so much faster, so much better.
Mhm.
Sure, sure. Well,
The machinery helps tremendously.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
do you still use some of the same machines that your great grandpa used, Jake?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ah,
There's really nothing new in this industry. So if you want to show them the outsole stitcher.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the outsole stitcher being the machine that we use to stitch a sole onto the welting of a boot or dress shoe. And so
okay.
an outsole stitcher has how many parts did you say, Dad?
1,004.
So we have 1,004 moving parts
Oh man.
on this product here that creates one singular stitch.
Really?
And as you run, it moves it through and it pulls the boot around and creates your stitch, which
Ah, nice.
gives you that.
Yeah. And you have different colored thread or whatever it is called.
Typically black and white.
Okay. So what is that product made of, that thread?
It started out as a flax product. So in
Oh.
the 50s, it was made out of flax.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's synthetic.
Well, and we used to have cotton too. You know, I mean, you'd have to run it through. Not
That was the flax.
was that the flax guy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, things have changed a bit there too. You still use the same machine. In fact, that outsole stitcher, the last machine was made in 1954. They don't even make those
That
anymore.
unit, yeah.
Yep.
Well, is your business as unique as that sole stitching machine? Because is it what you do? Can you find a similar business in a similar city in North Dakota, or are you just you unique?
There's 4 left in North Dakota, and so you have one
actually,
in Minot, one in Valley City, and one in Grand Forks.
Yes.
So we have 4.
Yeah, and then we've got ours. It is harder to find than it used to. Most of the larger cities have at least one. But when you looked at it back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, there was 4 of them in Bismarck. Okay, and what ended up happening? Yeah, we had the test of time. Some of them passed away, and nobody wanted to do that. And as it went through, they all didn't make it simply because they had nobody to take over. And when I came around, Dad never forced me to do it. I enjoyed it also. And I was one of the few families that actually wanted to do that. And so I kept it going for quite a few years, worked with my dad. In fact, my son and I and my father worked together for quite a few years, probably 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Exciting.
That was very heartwarming and satisfying to be working there together as a family, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, my son makes it much easier for me to come to work.
Ah,
I love being here with him.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I mean,
Yeah.
And
that's
again,
great.
this is the question that, or the answer I give a lot of people too. You know, everybody, I mean, you see so many people who will work with family and they find difficulties, and it's like, yes, there are difficulties regardless of who you work with, but there's so much more joy because you can sit down and as a family, you get to really enjoy the business thrive together. You know, what you accomplish is together. It's not just by one individual.
Yeah. The shop you saw out in front there, that is because of my son. I was always too busy working in the back to care what the front looked like.
Sure.
And so I'm probably still in that role. I do the stuff that nobody else wants to do, and he can take some time to make the front look presentable and decent for people.
But
Mhm.
even I found, the more into the repair I get, the more into the business I get, my time is changing. Where I have time has changed. So I mean, I've even found, every morning you'd come in, every boot had to be placed perfectly correct on the rack. And yeah, I'm finding I'm a little bit lackadaisical on that end compared to what I used to be, because I just don't have as much time as I used to.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you find that when you get together at family dinners or holidays that you talk shop, or do you try not to do that?
Me and Dad, I think, would talk shop anywhere.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd involve many others in it, but if we sit down, we're bound to talk some
It
shop.
always, yeah. What happened all day is talked about when we get together at night. We try not to make that the center of attention, but yeah, I forgot to tell you about this, Dad. You need to do this for this gentleman. And yeah, because it's part of this is not just a business, it's really a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
So-
farming.
Exactly what I was thinking. And Jake, do you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 older sisters. Dad also had 3 older sisters. And so me and Dad are both the babies of our families.
Oh, well, that's another special bond.
Yeah. The golden child and the only boys.
Yes.
Hey, Mark, when you had the shop in the basement of Cowan Drug, was there I can't recall, was there a front end and a back end of that shop, or when you came down the stairs, was that where you were located and the customer saw your work area and your retail area, and it was just open for the customer to see?
There was not much retail back then. We sold a couple pair of Western boots, maybe some belts, but the retail was small. We had a shine stand with 2 chairs, which kept us really busy. The work was done away from the people. You don't want them to see the mess and all of that either. But you would come down the stairs and you would take an immediate right, and that was our shop. If you went straight, you would go down to a barber shop. And
I
so you
remember
could get
that.
your shoes shined and a haircut. in
All
the same
right.
spot.
So
Isn't there a song like that? Something
There
about
might be.
shining a haircut 2 bits or something like that.
Okay, what was the cost of not a haircut, the shoe shine? We know what the tip was, but what was the cost?
When I started shining shoes, it was 65 cents.
Oh,
And so when you look at that now, we would get $15.
Yeah.
wow. And at that time, did the hotels have a shoe shine person there also?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had GP Hotel was across the street from us. He was my fiercest competitor.
Fierce.
Oh.
Yeah, he was fierce. He was he did good. He was a good shiner, but he was a talker also. So there were people that you got to know. In Bismarck, you had Schaefer, who was a big guy in North Dakota, and McCarney, and all of these guys that had car dealerships or big businesses. They would come in and ask for you. And the goal was always to play the game, is to make sure after their shoes were shined, they were also smiling.
Yes.
And sometimes they came in not so happy. So that was harder than you think. You had to play a little bit of psychologist there in order to do that. But that's what got you your tip.
Oh, sure.
Being kind.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like what a shoe shiner was, and had to be a conversationalist, similar to a hairdresser for a woman. You get to know them on a more personal level, and
absolutely you do. Yeah, you have to have the gift of gab in order to make it work.
And I bet that's easy.
Yeah, not
You've
too
been
hard for us.
gifted.
Runs in the family.
Well, Jake, what do you have that you can show us in those news clippings about downtown Bismarck in the 50s?
Oh, we got a couple here.
I'm not sure these are the clippings.
Let's see here.
I do have some pictures.
Yes. Oh, let me get that. Okay, can you tell us who those are?
Yeah, that would be my dad
Uh-huh.
and my uncle.
Okay.
So
and that's back in probably around 51.
it'd be cool if any of our viewers remember your business and remember them, if they'd comment on this. That would be really
Was that
great.
in Cowan?
No. So I'm going to show you the shop where my grandfather started. So
Okay.
it would be, oops, I got to go way down. It was right in there.
Was that Main Street?
Nope, that was
Broadway.
Broadway.
Okay.
Oh, over there.
Broadway and what?
Between-
Broadway and 5th, between 4th and 5th.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is
And then
that
this
is that
was
building?
the inside of the shop.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Is that
Oops,
building
sorry.
still there?
No, they actually tore those all down to put pennies in.
On Broadway.
And so,
Sure.
yep, that's how we ended up in the basement. Dad didn't really know where to go. Bill Cowan had Cowan Drug. He said, I've got some space downstairs. If I clean it up and get rid of my extra inventory, you can have that. So Dad rented the spot from him.
Oh, okay. All right. And were there the other shoe shiners that were in town then? Were they in basement levels as well?
No, and in fact, we were probably the only one that was in a basement.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mark, no, I'm sorry, Jake, you had been telling me before we in a previous conversation that downtown Bismarck has closed off all their basement level businesses.
Yeah, I mean, to a business aspect,
Mhm.
I think the property owners still can utilize them as storage and things like that, but you can't, from what I understand, you can't run a business out of it.
And what's the main reason for that?
I think just safety. They were getting pretty old. When I worked down under the Cowan Drug Building, you could actually take a left when you got there and go into the bathrooms and a little cleanup area.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had, we called it the dyeing room. He would dye shoes in the back. And so when people would come in, they'd go, "Is your father here?" And I'd say, "He's in the back dyeing." And they'd look at me. And,
I love it.
but he could never get interrupted. He had to, back then, you couldn't get every color of shoe. So people would come in almost on a regular basis and have a pair of their favorite shoes, pale pink for this dress, or ivory for a wedding, or we were changing colors constantly.
Oh yes, that was the thing, to have fabric,
Matchy.
yeah,
Mhm.
fabric pumps, and then to have them dyed to match your garment.
Oh gosh, yes. And that's the only way you could do it. Now you could probably get something out there. There's so many more shoe companies making shoes with a lot more options.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Fun.
Well,
So-
Jackie and I each got, didn't we? Each wore our
What?
first pumps at 8th grade. 8th grade
Yes.
graduation.
Right.
Did you really?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we got them for, I don't know, I think I got it for confirmation too. It was about the same time.
And they were white. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
then we had
were-
to learn to
we were-
walk in them,
Yeah.
like young
From-
ladies.
From cowboy boots to heels.
Yeah.
What a difference. Yeah.
Yes. What was Christmas like in downtown Bismarck in the 50s?
Oh gosh, they did a lot downtown. They wrapped all of the lights downtown. They had little, I don't want to call it a banner, but it was an overhead banner that would go across the road,
Yeah.
and it said Merry Christmas, and there was red and green everywhere. But all the stores as well did things.
Mhm.
But it was a fun place. You look back at it, and believe me, the memories are probably better than what really happened. I
Well,
remember the snow just barely falling, and it was
Mhm.
probably 25 degrees with no wind. That doesn't happen very often.
I mean,
No.
back then you actually had physical decorations to hang up too. Now it's you buy a
Right.
cardboard cutout that says Merry Christmas and you string it up from 2 strings. I mean, everything's gotten
Yeah.
cheap.
Yes.
I
Yep.
mean, you had nice stuff back in the 50s.
And lots of
Mhm.
lights.
Yeah.
They strung
Lots of
lights
lights.
from lamppost to lamppost. Yeah, it was always fun. It was always
So,
fun.
do you remember a time when some store played music, and so when you're walking down the street, you heard Christmas carols?
Oh, absolutely. They all had the little speaker out underneath
Ah.
the awning. And so
Uh-huh.
they were all playing the same tune. So you
Oh.
go from one to the other. I think it was
Uh-huh.
probably, I don't even know how they did that, because they didn't have a way of really playing a tape or anything like we do now, but they all had the same tunes on. So it must have been from a central location that
Mhm.
just
My
went all
guess
the way
is
down the blocks.
it might have been KFYR.
Could be.
Could be.
Meyer Building.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it could be.
Was
That
there
was
a-
pretty cool.
Was there a downtown business association that helped get the downtown organized, or activities for downtown, or just to make sure that downtown retail thrived in Bismarck?
Yes, and in fact, it's still going. It was called the Downtowners.
Mm-hmm.
And so back in those days, there was actually a little cafe that was called the Downtowner. And of course, that's where Dad and I would go to the Downtowner meetings, because they would meet once a week, not for very long, maybe an hour, and they would talk about the things downtown. And that's when things got done, when you had to do them yourselves. So you had clubs that, like the JCs, the Kiwanis, the Knights of Columbus, they all helped do those things. Now it kind of falls on to the city or the Park and Rec.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Okay. And is it hard to get people to be a part of that organization anymore because there aren't as many businesses downtown?
They've got a really good young gal that's heading it up.
Yeah, I feel like they have a pretty good following in the downtowners.
They do.
I mean, they've really built up in the last probably 10 years. They've made some good progress. And I mean, there's a lot of people. I feel like Bismarck's downtown is probably thriving its nicest since it has probably in the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah, there's not a lot of empty spots right now. There's some,
good.
but not a lot.
No, most of them have been re-renovated. And I mean, back in the day, I mean, so much of the flooring was, had asbestos in it. So, I mean, so many of those buildings that did sit vacant, well, you now buy a expensive project.
And you buy expensive what?
It's an expensive project
Well,
to do
yes.
it. I
project,
mean, you have to tear it all out. I mean, you're
Yes.
basically building from the ground up.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as
So-
we near the end of our conversation, gentlemen, how can you summarize the development of your family business over 5 generations in Bismarck, North Dakota?
My thought on that is, Dad always told me, if you do a good job, they'll come back. And so we've always tried to do that. I don't think the business has really changed as much as a person would think through the decades. How we do things maybe has, but really the bottom line is, if you're good to people, they will be good to you.
Very wise words.
Right on. Well said. Well said. Well summarized. Thank you.
Yes,
You bet.
thank you, Mark and Jake Gartner, Bismarck, North Dakota. Thank you, viewers, for watching this and gleaning some more fun information from life in the 1950s, and especially with the Gartner family. Jackie, how can you close our
Well,
program?
I'll just say thank you all for viewing this. We hope you learned a little bit more about the recent history of the 1950s, and tell your friends, even your relatives, about the 1950s Fun Chat. So till next time, toodaloo.